we're going to talk about taking listings from your sphere mostly. Okay, so pretty much all of my business at this stage of my career is what I call warm business. Okay, it's either repeat, referral, or somebody in my sphere. Okay, I do not work any cold business at all anymore. But last year of the 116 transactions that I did have one deal that the guy called me directly from a radio ad. Somehow he got my personal cell phone number, and I helped him because he was old and really sweet. His name was Larry, and he was precious. But other than that, all of the other deals were people that I already had personal relationship with. And so I always say, if I write a book one day, it's going to be called Relationships Equal Revenue. And if you guys can get that little nugget today, it will completely transform your real estate business. So when I first got into the business, I really didn't know anything about lead generation. I didn't even know people bought leads. I didn't even know that that was a thing, as a lot of people do. And I didn't understand anything about client acquisition, actually. I really didn't know where clients would come from. I just assumed I was gonna get my real estate license and people would magically start calling me, right? Did anybody think that? I just thought like the phone's gonna start ringing, and then it didn't, and I was like, what's happening? But what I did not realize is that there was already a ton of gold in my phone, in my Facebook friends list, at my kids' soccer games, sitting across from me at the Thanksgiving table. These people that I had relationships with were going to be the ones who were going to be fueling my career years on down the line. And so today, I list about 100 houses a year, give or take. And again, all of that comes from my personal sphere of influence. By intentionally, this is what we're going to talk about today, how you intentionally nurture that sphere in order to create and strengthen those relationships that then turn into revenue. All right? You might think that'd be helpful. All right, I'll ask you again at the end, and we'll see how that goes. So what I'm gonna call this, the little tagline I'm gonna use today, relationships is the root, revenue is the fruit. So think about what you're planting, okay? All right, so this apple represents a real estate deal, okay, a real estate lead. And I want you to think about it in the terms of the difference between having the fruit and harvesting those seeds. Did you know that there's 7,500 different species of apple? 7,500. You could eat a different type of apple every day for 20 years. Some of that sounds like some of y'all's lead gen methodology, right? We're just gonna keep on trying the same thing, not staying consistent. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. And that's a lot of what our business looks like. So if you think about that in the practical terms, if I'm hungry, right, and I need a deal, I'm hungry and I need something to eat, I can go to the store and I can buy an apple, right? And that apple will feed me today, right now, right? Is there anything wrong with that? Absolutely not, especially if you're hungry, okay? But think about the difference between taking that apple that's going to feed you one time and then planting the seeds within that apple that will feed your business for your entire career. All right, so that's kind of how we're gonna break it down today. All right, what is the core of your business? Right now, think about what is the makeup of your business, your real estate business that you're running. We know there's two types of leads, right? Cold leads, people who don't know you, right? Warm leads, people that do know you. Not revolutionary, you don't have to even write this down. Two ways that they interact with you, all right? They're either inbound, they call you. How many of you would prefer inbound leads over outbound leads? Every single person in the business, all right? Those are the two ways that they interact with you. And then there is a myriad, I did not name them all, of lead sources out there, right? They've talked about a lot of them already so far today. Fuzzbos, expired, sphere, door knocking, referral, direct mail, lead platforms, PPC, website, Google LSA. Okay, all these different types of lead sources that are either cold or warm, that come to you either through inbound or outbound interactions, right? And they're all these different ones. What would you say is the very best one of these lead sources? Which one works the best? Newsflash, all of them. They all work, every single one of them, all right? If you work it, it works if you work it, right? So there's not necessarily that one of these is better than the other. Now, personally, obviously, I'd run a sphere-based business, it's what I prefer, but I'm not hating on anybody who's out there spending a gajillion dollars on Zillow if their ROI is positive, okay? So again, thinking about the way that your business is currently structured and how would you like to move it in some of these platforms and categories. The problem is, I think, that no matter what direction your leads come from, okay, I think what happens to a lot of people is we get stuck in this cycle. All right, the lead becomes a customer, becomes a client, they get closed, and then what? Right? So what happens, we need to think about this in the way of how do we keep that lead engaged? How do we keep that lead in our ecosystem? How do we take that lead and turn it into a seed? Pastor Bobby would be so proud of me right now. My pastor is like the rhyminest guy, so how do we take a lead and turn it into a seed, right? This is what you guys need to be thinking about, because otherwise you're going to constantly be on this hamster wheel that you're having to feed financially, all right? Again, nothing wrong with it, but it's exhausting and it's expensive to constantly be having to reinvent that wheel. And so when you can take those leads and plug them in to a sphere-based selling ecosystem, then the people, that apple that you paid for one time will be seeds that you can plant and harvest and be transactions that you will get that you'll not have to pay for in the future. Does that make sense? All right, so I think that's something that everybody would agree with. Now how do you know that this is where your business is at? If you work a very heavy buyer business, it is probably because you're trapped somewhere in this cycle. I talk to teams that are doing 200, 300 transactions a year, and they're 80% buyers. Why? Because they're buying those leads from those platforms. Seller leads are hard to get, right? Like if we had just a plethora of come list me seller platforms, we'd all be funneling as much money as we possibly could into that. So the majority of those leads that you're getting from those outbound or inbound sources are going to be buyer leads. Now, I tell my team all the time, right? How do you want more listings? Team? What do you do if you want more listings? Team. You're making me look bad up here. You work more buyers and you do it for a long period of time. All right? Your buyers turn in to sellers eventually. Okay? If you think about on the average, they say they're all laughing. They're like, we didn't know that was the right answer. We didn't want to be wrong. They say that the average person moves every 7 years. Right? So if you think about it in that framework, we're going to get down and break that down and see what that looks like in your database a little bit. But especially for those of you that are new, don't be afraid to invest your time into buyers and do what it takes to continue to nurture that relationship, because one day, maybe 7 years from now, they're going to turn into a seller. How many of you are still going to be selling real estate in 7 years? Okay, so is it worth your time and your investment, right? You're still going to be here in 7 years. You're going to want that return business. Okay, next slide. So thinking about the core of your business, you can buy the apple or you can plant the seed. Neither one of those is wrong, right? But the magic happens when you figure out how to do both. And so again, we're going to break that down a little bit. That apple feeds you today. Those seeds are going to feed your business forever. So thinking about this concept of relationships, revenue, how do I get more revenue? It's not a trick question. Have more relationships. Get more relationships and make the relationships that you have better. And it's important, I think, when we start talking about this, for those of you that are good people, which I'm gonna guess is most people in this room, you start maybe feeling a little bit icky. I don't want to use my relationships to get money. I don't want to use, the people that I love, my friends, my family, to get money. Well, they're going to use somebody to buy or sell their real estate, right? How much of a disservice are you doing if you allow them to use somebody who does only care about money and not care about that relationship, right? So you do want to check your heart posture. Check your heart posture and make sure you're always coming from a place of giving. But what I have found is that when we don't have an expectation to get and we give and we serve people, guess what happens? We get anyway, right? And so yes, relationships equal revenue, and it's not a bad thing.
Club Wealth is the only coaching company on the planet that will literally guarantee that you will double your income or make at least an extra $100,000 your first year coaching with us, or we will give you 100% of your investment back. Click the link below, sign up for the appropriate tier level, and let's get you a strategy session today. And I promise you, I 100% guarantee you, promise you that you will walk away with a heart full of gratitude for the time that we took for you, because you got so much value out of that call. Schedule your strategy session today. I promise you'll be glad you did.